Penguin Random House Audio presents Ghettoside, A True Story of Murder in America by Jill Leovy. Read for you by Rebecca Lowman. When you see the suffering and pain that it brings, you'd have to be blind, mad, or a coward to resign yourself to the plague. Albert Camus, The Plague. Part 1. The Plague. Chapter 1. A Circle of Grief. Los Angeles police detective John Skaggs carried the shoe box aloft like a waiter bearing a platter. The box contained a pair of high-top sneakers that once belonged to a black teenage boy named Devon Harris. Devon, 15, had been murdered the previous June, and the shoes had been sitting in an evidence locker for nearly a year. Skaggs, 44, was the lead investigator on the case, which was about to go to trial. At 6'4", he was a conspicuous sight in Watts, the southeast corner of the vast city of Los Angeles, a big, blondish man with a loping stride in an expensive, light-colored suit. He stepped out of the bright morning light, turned down a narrow walkway along a wall topped with a coil of razor wire, and approached a heavy-duty steel ghetto door, a security door with a perforated metal screen of the kind that, along with stucco walls and barred windows, represented one of LA's most distinctive architectural features. He knocked, and without waiting for an answer, pushed the door open. On the other side of the threshold stood a stout, dark-skinned woman. Skaggs walked in and placed the open shoebox in her hands. The woman stared at the shoes, choked and speechless. Skaggs' eyes caught her stricken face as he walked past her. "Hi, Barbara," he said. "Having a bad day today?" This was Skaggs' way, disdaining preliminaries, getting right to the point. His every move was infused with energy and purpose. In conversation, he jingled his keys, swung his arms, or bounced on the balls of his feet. The movements were not fidgety so much as rhythmic and relaxed, like those of a runner warming up. Forced to hold still in a court proceeding or a meeting, Skaggs would freeze in the posture of a man enduring an ordeal, a knuckle pressed to his lips, a pose that conveyed his bunched-up vigor more than any restless tic. Now, having deposited the shoes in Barbara Pritchett's hands, and having received no answer to his question, he came to a halt in the middle of the living-room carpet. Pritchett remained silent, head bowed, eyes fixed on the contents of the shoebox. She was 42, in poor health. She had recently been diagnosed with diabetes, and her doctor had urged her to get out and walk more. But her son had been shot to death a few blocks away, and Pritchett was too frightened to venture out. She spent days lying in the dark, unable to will herself to move or speak. That morning, as always, she was wearing a big, loose T-shirt with Devon's picture on it. All around her, in the tiny living room, were mementos of her murdered son, sports trophies, photos, sympathy cards, certificates, stuffed animals. With great care, Pritchett perched the shoebox on the arm of a vinyl armchair by the door and slowly lifted one shoe. It was worn, black, dusted with red Watts dirt. It was not quite big enough to be a man's shoe, not small enough to be a child's. She leaned against the wall, pressed the open top of the shoe against her mouth and nose, and inhaled its scent with a long, deep breath. Then she closed her eyes and wept. Skaggs stood back. Pritchett's knees gave out. Skaggs watched her slide down the wall in slow motion, her face still pressed into the shoe. She landed with a thump on the green carpet. One of her orange slippers came off. On the TV,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?